back to another episode of the Hall of Fame Dynasty podcast. This is not your typical voice. Today, I'm going to be interviewing John, going through his team, talking with him. This is Mac here. And so we switched the roles. John's normally the one interviewing people. However, he wanted to be interviewed. He didn't have to do his own thing there. So I took his spot, and today the roles will be flipped. So I welcome John on to talk about his team today.
God, it's so weird. I'm glad to be on. It's so weird being the guest, though, and it's more fun. Especially, I felt like if I were to run my own show and just kind of talk about it to somebody else, it'd just be me hyping up my own team and kind of fantasizing while talking. So
here's how great my team is.
More...
Let me tell you about how good my team is. Oh, Jesus, my ears.
Plus, it's more fun. I want to get your guys' input on it too. It's fun to discuss different players. So
well, yeah. Thankfully, you got the guy who knows the second most about baseball in this league. There's know a lot, super educated, so I'll be able to hit you with the hard hitting questions for sure. Really get you sweating over there, put you in the hot seat. But yeah, it'll be fun. I'm excited for it. I think the dynamic will be a lot better than having you just tell your story of how good your team is to somebody else and be like, oh yeah, no, you've got a young team. Your team is pretty good. I definitely agree. You know, obviously we're starting out kind of talking about how your team looks good, but if we look at last year, your team was good last year. You had a record of 174, 72, and 6, but you finished in third. That was a top record last year. By far, I think I looked, it was at least by like 40 or 50 wins there. I had to be.
No,
was it not?
Because I think Keith was
like
close behind me, I think.
I'm going to look at this right now because I don't believe you.
I feel like he was 150, though, because I know him and I were two of the strongest teams between us, but I didn't think he was that far behind.
I think he was far behind you. Let me take a look here. I'm actually curious.
I'm pulling it up as well.
I thought he was far behind you.
I finished in third because I lost to Kevin and his cheating trash can banging Astros.
You can't do that in fantasy. You lost because you choke in the postseason, but that's okay. No, you were actually Keith. Okay, Keith.
Yeah, 159.
Okay, I was remembering in our division, and the Astros are way behind you there, but they still beat you. We'll get to that. That will be brought up later for sure, though, because I really love how your team is. Well, as we'll talk about, young and good. But you finished in third. And I went back to the first season we ever did here. And I beat you in that first season. I totally forgot about that. But I did better than you in the first season. Well, that's because Nope, doesn't matter, John.
So obviously, like, you keep saying my team is young. And I gave up that first season of baseball, which was kind of hard to do. But it was fun because I remember that was when we had 12 teams as well.
Exactly.
So obviously, not everybody was here for that, but we had 12 teams, and after I think 4 or 5 teams, somebody mentioned it. I think somebody brought up the question of, are you going to trade with every single team? And so I made that my goal, and that was a lot of fun trying to come up with different ways to trade with every single team.
And did you actually trade with every single team that season? Did you get?
Yes.
Jeez, because I know me and you traded a lot, went back and forth, but I didn't know you got every team in there.
The hardest teams were Jared, but we had our trade early on, and then Keith, we had a smaller trade, if I remember.
Okay, I know. Well, Jared's the one that takes 3 months to get back to you about a trade. He'll leave you.
And then we also had the 2 other teams that were up and down that we ended up getting rid of. They were tough because they weren't always active.
That's right. So that's impressive. I totally forgot about that. All I know is that year I did better than you, and it's probably the last time in a long time I will do better than you in baseball. However, let's get to this past season. Like I said, finishing third with the best record in the entire league. So it's got to be tough to finish. You obviously last year looking at the record going to the postseason, you were definitely excited, definitely looking for something better than third, I would assume. I know you're a humble guy, but I think that you were definitely looking for that championship round there because your team did fantastic last year. I know that the next team below you had, 100? We just looked 159 wins there, but your team is solid. And you were definitely looking for that championship round. So to finish at third place definitely probably leaves a bad taste in your mouth last year. Going into this year, I'd assume you're looking for another solid postseason run, which we can talk about that later. However, let's look at who you gained during the offseason here. We got I'm not even going to count all those names. I was going to give you a number, but I'm not even going to go through that because you are obviously very active. So your lists
12.
are 12. Okay, thank you. You're obviously very active. So these numbers, I'd assume, are kind of these names. You got a lot more names here than some other teams for sure. But first we got Ramon Laureano. There we go. I got it. Laureano. We're practicing before this, me and John. For you those listening, we practice. I'm still going to screw it up. Michael Lorenzen, Kevin Ginkel, Emmanuel Clace. Yeah, I think. Oh, yeah. Rich Hill,
Yep.
Corbin Burns, Travis Shaw, Hector Neris, Ronald Acuna Jr., Mike Moustakas, Gavin Lux, and Anthony Desclafani. Whatever. You guys know. That's a last name. Some of these last names, if you hear them mispronounced, you still know who it is, so it doesn't really matter. But with the players gained, I especially want to talk about Acuna and Lux. Acuna on the first end because obviously he is a young talent who is really good. And then Lux I thought would give us something to talk about because that was between me and you. Just, a month ago? Not even. So
Not even.
First, it was time flies, but 2 weeks, 3 weeks? I don't know. It was when I was busy, so time was just not existent to me. I was like, here, have Lux. Why not? No, but Acuna there, obviously what happened with that is Sean left, and you immediately scavenged the team and took him right from him, and now he's back and hurting. Obviously, you obviously just took advantage of that whole situation, which is smart maybe, but no, I'm kidding. But well, maybe not, just a little bit. Sean, I know you're out there listening. He definitely scavenged that team and took him right from out in front of you. So I go after him if you want. But yeah, that's a fantastic player, and so I'd assume you're very excited to have him on the team going forward.
I am, and especially since I originally gave him up. I gave him up before his big breakout year last year, and it really hurt to see him go off like that. Mm-hmm. And he's exciting. He's fun to watch, and I felt like it was really hard to get that deal done because I gave up so many pieces in so many areas, hockey being the only one that I didn't. But I wanted to secure that spot that I originally had after I regretted the trade with Sean originally. So glad to have him back and glad to start 2020 with him.
Yeah, no, you're looking at your outfield right now, just filled with young guns. We got Acuna, Jimenez, Robles, Soto, and Trout's not. Yeah, how old is Trout anyways? I have no idea.
27, 28?
28. So your outfield is set for years to come, honestly. I don't think you really need to do much there unless one of them, something happens, they go off the deep end and they can't play baseball anymore as what they used to. But your team is, I'd assume you are looking at your outfield and you're feeling pretty good for down the road.
Oh, of course. And it's, especially with us fielding 5 outfielders, I wanted to attack that position and make that one of my strongest, considering we play so many of them. And
exactly. With
the 2 utilities, obviously you know what it's like to field a bunch of outfielders on your team. So I like having the strength there because outfield feels like a position that just bounces up and down every year. Last year it seemed like it was really shallow, and going into this year it did too. But it seems like it's gotten stronger. So I just wanted to have the base of my team be in the outfield, and I can always figure the other positions later.
Which, yeah, that totally makes sense. I overestimate. I will go over because we have so many outfielders that I field far too many or have far too many. Compensate would be the right word there. But yeah, fielding with 5, it makes the league dynamic a little different because we have to put such an emphasis on them in some capacity. And you've really set yourself up. If you look at other teams, they've got maybe a couple big outfielders. And you look at their bench and their depth there, it's not so great, but you've kind of really set yourself up there for success down the road. And if you look at the team, we'll go through specific players later, but it looks like you've done that in almost every position about. Now, if we look at players you've lost in the offseason, we'll see a position that comes out there that maybe you've taken a step back at. However, who we lost: Trevor Bauer, Tommy Pham, Royce Lewis, Zach Gallen, Lance Lynn, Yandy Diaz, Danny Santana, Clayton Kershaw, Josh Bell, Justin Verlander, Riley Green, and Nolan Gorman. I killed that list. But
yes, you did.
But if we look through that list, we notice that there's a ton of pitching in there, and so it makes us wonder. Well, John, what happened? You lost Kershaw, Verlander, Bauer, some big names there, especially Kershaw and Verlander. But what happened there? Why lose so much pitching?
Well, I mean, as we kind of talked about in the year in review podcast, and it was something I had looked into once the season ended. I always like seeing where all of the teams ranked and how, especially in a categories league like this, okay, who had what kind of records, who held everything together, and just I felt like pitching was such a strength for me last year that I could take a step, or actually a couple of steps back at this point, and still be a leader in that position and still have it be a strength of my team. Because, and especially with how quickly pitching can change, I was willing to move on from the older guys and be a year or two too early on them, rather than sitting and being at the lowest point. I kind of wanted to sell off and maybe find some younger guys, since they're always coming up and there's guys that break out. I mean, look at Zach Gallen last year. Obviously, nobody really entered 2019 knowing his name, but throughout the season, he performed well, and I feel like I can always pick up a pitcher or two and try and supplement the back end of my roster at that point.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. With pitching in this league, it's hit or miss, I guess. At some points, it's you can get successful. You can pick up, as I did in that. I think it was the second. It was last year. I picked up Marquez. I think it was maybe 2 years ago. After he was posting like a 6 ERA throughout, but I needed somebody. He's up there. Grabbed him. He performed fantastic for the rest of the year. So it's really that's obviously a position where you can give up some strength because you don't really know what's to come the next year. Now, you did give up Kershaw, who is strong every year, it looks like, besides when he plays the Astros in the offseason. But and we give up, Justin Verlander, who I've put on now, and I took on like some older pitching there. But like you said, you want to give the older ones and go younger. I'm looking to get better with pitching, go forward there, and whatnot. I did just realize we skipped over Gavin Lux. We'll go back to him in a second. But anyways, you gave up old pitching there. But if we look at your pitching anyways, we got some good names here. It's not like you severely downgrade. It's not like your pitching's abysmal to look at like Sean's used to be back in the day. You have Walker Buehler, Shane Bieber. You have some good young names there, and if you look down the list, even young, we go to your minors, good names there as well. So it's not like you gave up so much and you're sitting like, oh, what do I do now? You obviously have a plan, and you go down the road and look, and you see that you allow yourself to give up a Verlander or a Kershaw, and in a year or two you'll be fine and won't be missing them, especially when Verlander's like 45 in 2 years and not pitching anymore. He's definitely not.
I mean, I could still see myself missing them, but it's the fact that I do like my pitching staff, at least at the core, with Buehler, Corbin, Castillo, and Bieber being my top guys. I gave up top end pitchers, but I felt like I liked my core, and it allows me to take some risks on guys that I have coming up in the future, or breakout pitchers that may come up next year that nobody really knows about, and it allows me to take some risks. So I like that.
Yep, exactly. And also, like you said, you look at your pitching, you have good depth there too. There's some teams in this league that will have a good top 2, top 3, and you'll need that. You have to lean on that Verlander or Kershaw to get results in your pitching categories. However, you've built yourself to be a good depth pitching team, so you don't need to lean on 1 or 2 big names necessarily, even though Walker and Bieber are big names and becoming bigger names as years go on. However, you don't need to lean on those 2 or 1 guy to get solid pitching stats, right? I want to go back quickly to Gavin Lux because I totally went over him. I got ahead of myself. I'm just really excited to be interviewing today. So, but I know we traded. Do you remember the trade specifically? I totally forget. I don't know why.
It was Cooper Kupp, Kyle Tucker, and I think it was Cooper Kupp and Kyle Tucker for Gavin Lux and a first-round pick for the 2020 NFL Draft.
Yep, that's right. So that's obviously me looking there and trying to get more receiving for my NFL team going forward. And then I bring in Kyle Tucker, another outfielder that added to my whole big pile of outfielders. But Gavin Lux, obviously, hopefully this year is strong, will be good. I've never really, you know more about him than I do, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend like, oh, this is how he plays, this is what he does, this is what we're looking at here. But he's obviously a talented guy. He sits at the top of these prospect boards at second baseman, at a position that I think is tough to get. I'd assume it's tough to get good prospects in because second base always seems so shallow in some parts, right? Especially for...
It's not just the prospects, but it's the fact that second base itself is such a shallow position going into the season, and even though I like Keston Hiura at second for my team, and who else? Ozzie Albies. Gavin Lux just feels like that type of guy that, okay, he didn't have the best debut last year, only hit 240 in 23 games, but he's got such a good floor that I could see him as a 25 home run guy with some decent steals in there too, because he does have some speed. So maybe he's the next Ozzie Albies, and I think he could be even better than that, especially with his batting average. I liked buying into him because I know he's going to gain in value. Even though I gave up a lot in football with Cooper Kupp, it was just the fact that shoring up a tough position, if I wanted to sell him or another of my second basemen, it becomes a strength for me to deal later on.
Yeah, exactly, and that makes sense. And right, looking at your team, you own probably the top 3 young second basemen. If you know of other ones, let me know. But you've got some of the top young second basemen on your team, which you're set. So that's a shallow position, but you've obviously hoarded it with young guys. And you got Mike Moustakas in there too. He's got second base eligibility. He's up though. But geez, I look at your team and I'm like, where did I go wrong? Like, what did I do to not have this lineup? Which is obviously a lot of things. I didn't do a whole hell of a lot. However, it's upsetting to look at this and be like, shit, this could have been me, but it's not me. This is not where I stand, because you put yourself in such a position where you got all these young guys who are producing now and will continue to produce. And you're not going to do this because I know you and I know how you do fantasy, but you could sit back and be like, hey, here's my team for the next 3 years. I'm going to compete every single year and be fine. Like, you're not going to do that because you're always trying to improve and look even further down the road. However, you could just do that. Like, it's with the team you've built here, you could just sit back and be like, oh, here we go. Lineup set. All right, perfect. I'm done for the day. I don't need to make any trades. I don't need to do any research. I've done enough already where I'm set. And it's almost like I'm sucking John's dick here, but the team is good. Like, I don't know what else to say. Like, me as an interviewer, I'm the guy who's supposed to look in depth, pick apart the team. They're young and they're good. Like, I don't know what else to say. Like, but let's keep going. There's a lot more to say about individual players. The team itself we'll get to later as well. But obviously, you can anybody in this league could pull up your Washington Nationals, you bandwagoner. I don't know why you ever changed to the White Sox. That's a whole nother
So
thing.
I can say it. So I originally, obviously, I know Steve, when he first came in, he asked if he could have the White Sox, and I was so, I guess, hell-bent on keeping them, I wanted to leave it there. But part of me is, I always enjoyed the Expos back in the day. Their old logo was one of my favorites, and I jumped on the Nationals when they became a thing, when they moved to Washington, and Ryan Zimmerman was always one of my favorites, him being their first draft pick. And it was just that fact of I wanted to give Steve the team that he wanted, and the Nationals were always one of my favorites. And plus, obviously, with me having Strasburg and Corbin and Soto is, I will admit, I have a man crush on him. So I guess I wanted to have him as the face of my franchise. So yeah, I decided to go with the Nationals. Plus the curly W, all the Walgreens jokes always crack me up too.
Which I see that in your team logo, you don't have the curvy W, but
yep.
You purposely do not have the curvy W in your logo there. But yeah, that makes sense. I just like to give you a shit for that, because you switched the Mavs in basketball. Yeah, you stuck with the Hawks in hockey, but it's probably because the last time you watched hockey was when the Hawks were a dynasty. So you're probably, oh shit, they're probably still really good. No, they're not, John. I'm sorry, but
I know they're terrible, unfortunately. And then, they're making that playoff push, though.
They are. Oh my god, because the Central Division's a shit show. Like, the Wild are making a playoff push, and they shouldn't be. Like, it's I'm not gonna get in it because this is a baseball podcast about your team you have in front of me. But going from there, let's go through and pick apart some of these young guys and talk about them. We got, first up, I want to talk about Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who is a beast. I don't know what else to say, really. You can talk more on that.
So he is, but he isn't. I mean, it was that thing of he crushed the minor leagues, and yet last year I mostly wanted to talk about him because last year was such a struggle bus with him. It reminded me of the 2018 for Cody Bellinger. He only had an OPS barely over 800 by the time August came around, and by the time the season ended, he was in the 760s. But a lot of it was he would hit the ball hard, but he just couldn't get under it. So I think this year could be the breakout year for him.
Oh, yeah.
He lost something like 20 pounds of fat over the offseason. He's definitely slimmed down a lot, and he's not super thin still, but he's in much more better baseball shape. Great English there. He's in much better baseball shape. Yeah, he was thick. He was a tree. But the problem is, he even admitted it, is he never really hit a weight room in his life. He was strong, but he just never really was. He never tried to slim down or get thinner and be more jacked. But this season, he actually did an actual off-season routine and got into better shape. And even the Blue Jays admitted that he was just so broken down by the time that July and August came along because he was carrying so much extra weight that he was just so tired. So I expect him to be able to fix his swing, get back to what he did in the minors, and he's got such a high ceiling that I'm really excited to watch him, even if he never will really steal bases at all. So
no, and like I said, he had a underwhelming year last year in one way, but he's still a beast, and he'll still be a beast. I looked up. I was curious because if he dropped 20 pounds of fat, that guy's obviously got some muscle in there because he's a strong ass guy. So I was looking, I gotta be like, what's this guy look like now? He probably looks like an absolute freak of nature. And I clicked the first picture. The headline is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. admits he's never worked out at a gym in his life. So not even hit the weight room of a gym. He's just never worked out at a gym. According to the headline, it's probably just a weight room, but I like to think that he's just never stepped foot into a gym. He's like walked by and be like, oh, that'd be pretty. I should probably go in there sometime. But then he goes to baseball practice and fucking knocks these moonshots constantly. He's like, oh, wait, I actually don't need to ever go to the gym. What's the point if I just knock these fucking moonshots constantly? And so, this year will be really interesting to see that if he dropped those 20 pounds, like you said, where he goes from here, That obviously Fantrax has got him having a much better year this year, but that's just Fantrax predictions. They got, 30 home runs. Almost 100 RBIs. But who knows? Hopefully that swing is fixed. I don't know. Have you watched any... Has he played any spring training yet?
Yeah, he is playing spring training, and he looks better at third base as well. He looks like he's able to be more athletic now since he doesn't carry so much extra weight.
It's just crazy seeing these guys like... We talk about, we got Vlad Guerrero here in MLB. We got Zion Williamson. Like, these kids are huge. Like, Zion Williamson obviously hits a gym. But... But
at the same time, he's another one though that he carries. He was, I think, 30-something pounds from the time that he gained 30 pounds of weight from the time that he left college to the time that he was about to just before he got hurt. And it's like, dude, especially as a big guy, you don't last that long in the NBA.
No, and they literally taught him how to walk differently. Like it. Like what? I think what is he at right now? They list him at 284. I've heard some things saying that he's actually closer to 300 than 280. He's listed at 284, but he might be pushing 300. Holy shit! I'm just googling shit. I'm being like that. You listen to Joe Rogan podcast where you got Jamie just googling things in the background, just like looking at things. Zion Williamson says he gained 100 pounds in 2 years. Dude's a monster. Okay, anyways. Going from Vlad Guerrero though, we go to another young player in Eloy Jimenez. Outfielder for your White Sox, even though you're the Nationals, but your home your home team. I can't also speak English. This is a great listening experience here. Home team of the Chicago White Sox, who last year had a decent year. He's 23. He was 22 last year. Put up 31 home runs, 80 RBIs. What do you expect from him out this year and looking forward?
I think he can put up 40 home runs this year easily. I mean, he put up 31 home runs in 122 games, so obviously he was on pace for 40. He struggled with injuries last year because his defense is not great, I'll admit that. And what really hurt him was the injuries. And especially in that first half, he was so talented, but pitchers, sort of like Vlad Jr., they pitched away from him. They were able to find the holes in his swing pretty easily because it's the major leagues. It's pretty much expected.
Exactly.
But once he got healthy, he was just absolutely dominant. He hit 11 home runs in the second half, or sorry, it's doubles, 15 home runs in the second half. And September and October, he had a 340 average and 9 home runs in 24 games. This kid has the potential to be a 290, 300 hitter with 40 bombs and just be an absolute monster. And as long as he can stay healthy, I wouldn't be surprised if he did hit 40 home runs, especially with the extra boost that's been added to the White Sox with Yasmani Grandal and Edwin Encarnacion. He's got the support around him. He's got Encarnacion, who should help him actually help boost his power just in the fact of have that veteran presence to help him learn. So I'm really excited for Eloy this year as long as he does not let his defense get him injured.
Yep, exactly. I remember I came after him plenty of times. I finally got their shortstop. I wrote Tim Anderson. I was just trying to gun for your White Sox players just to be kind of a dick. But but I never got Eloy, which is upsetting. However, like you said, it's kind of scary to look at this team, and we just talked about Vlad Guerrero and Eloy, who both got hit with. They got a little bit of a learning curve to go through coming to the big leagues, right? But they still put up fine numbers through their learning curve, and just like you said, Eloy had a fantastic end of the year. So you start figuring out it's going to be scary to see what these guys do when they fully adjust, because you can't just do it in a year. It's a whole different ball game than the minors. I guess it's not even a joke. I guess it's the actual saying. It's a whole different whatever. We go, and when these guys get over that learning curve, it's going to be scary to see what they're doing because, like I said, Vlad's, 20? Can't even have a beer yet.
He's 20 going on 21.
Can't even have a beer yet. Who knows? He might put back on those 20 pounds once he can have some beer. But and Eloy's a little older, but not by much. He's 23. So, we get past these learning curves with these guys, and who knows what they're capable of. We got when they're 25, 26, getting down there 27, when they're fully adjusted to the league, know what they're seeing, know what's to be expected, and they're going to be killing it. Like it's looking at your team, just going through these guys. It's going to be interesting to see 2 years from now where they all sit. Who still sits in your lineup? Obviously, at least you're not a salary cap league because you'd be extremely fucked.
I would.
But, sitting here and see 2 years, 3 years, where are these guys sitting and what kind of numbers are they putting up then compared to their 20, 21, 22-year-old seasons? Right? Let's go next to Jesus Luzardo. I don't know why. That was even hard to say. I just tripped up on my own tongue there. But going next, he's expected, go look at Fantrax here, expected to have a solid year, 220 strikeouts. He's 22. I honestly don't know much about this guy. You obviously do, so I'll let you take it from here.
I feel like starting with Fantrax, they're really bold on their take with him.
The
fact that they have him for 180 innings is a surprise, considering he was out part of last year with a shoulder injury and he was held back. But he's a guy that I've been really excited for. I've had plenty of interest in him before he made his debut, but he's a guy I bought into right away. Very control type pitcher he's usually walking 2 batters per 9, and that's excellent. But he has some really nasty stuff with his slider and his fastball, and even his changeup is developing. So I feel like he can be an ace of my staff, or at least right up there with Walker Buehler in this year, because of the fact that he has the ability to control. Put the ball where he wants to. He's able to limit the free passes, and he has the strikeout upside. And Fantrax is a little bit more bold than I am. I probably have him around 150, 160 innings.
Yeah.
But in a big ballpark like Oakland, he's going to be able to suppress the power. He's going to be able to rack up some good strikeouts. And I've been waiting for him, and I'm excited to finally be able to use him, and I just hope he can stay healthy because pitchers are such a variance, and it sucks to see him get hurt.
Yep. No. If we look at, I pull up Fangraphs here, which is a much more reliable source for outcomes. I would think than Fantrax is, because they got him sitting around, like you said, the 150 mark, basically is where they have him sitting, and they got him sitting at around another 150 strikeouts, somewhere around there. So, yeah, that's right. I'm just making sure I'm looking at So,
yeah, if he goes 150, 160 innings and strikes out 170, I'm more than happy with it because his ERA should be around a 3.5, and I will absolutely take that in his first full year.
Yeah, exactly. And they got him, ERA sit from 3.4 to 3.9, but in their different little projection companies or wherever they get websites, wherever they get these from on there. But that's kind of crazy that the Fantrax shoots them so high. I just when recording, I'll quickly go off that with that there because it's right there. However, obviously when researching, you always got to hit. I think Fangraphs, you probably know better shit, but Fangraphs always for me works well. Pretty quick and easy to use. But yeah, he's 22, dominant, looks solid, and was, like you said, has dealt with injuries in the past. I don't know, has he had... What's funny now is Fangraphs will tell you if they've had Tommy John, like at the top of it. Like I was going through their prospects board, and it'll tell you they added a new little section that says Tommy John, and if they've had Tommy John surgery, not or yet. Yet or not. So I can't find it on...
He has had Tommy John surgery.
I know because on the prospects board they put it on there, but I don't know where they put it on their player layout sort of thing.
Yeah, he's had Tommy John, and that was when he first got drafted. I think it was 2016 when he had it, and then obviously he dealt with the shoulder injury last year. So it's been a long road for him. So for him to finally make his full season debut, I'm excited, especially what he flashed at the end of the year last year with, 12 innings pitched, and he had 12 strikeouts per 9, and he didn't look great in the playoffs, but it's playoff baseball. It's a whole different monster there.
Exactly.
But he still limited the walks, so I'm happy with that. I'm more excited for him than almost anyone else out of my farm system pitching-wise.
Yeah, but next we'll go to another young pitcher that pitches for your Chicago White Sox, Dylan Cease, who is 24, looking to have... I'm not even going to look at the Fantrax numbers again. I'm going to pull them up quickly off Fangraphs here because I don't believe that's just tough to look at. Fangraphs, he is projected to look around, if I want to load here, 130 innings here and sitting around 145 strikeouts with an ERA of about a 4.5 sitting around there. I don't know if that's where you want him to be at, but you can take it from there.
Obviously, I don't want him around a 4.5 ERA, but I feel like a lot of projections don't really know what to do with him because even throughout his minor league career, he was always around 4 walks per 9. It's not a great number to be around. It's a weakness in his game for sure. But back in the minors, he was able to limit power, which he couldn't do last year. Almost 2 runs per game that he was in, and it's a hard thing to do. But he issued walks, he issued home runs. But I heard something recently that from him himself on 670 The Score that he was getting unnecessary cut on his fastball last year, and he didn't know where it was coming from. And fellow pitcher Reynaldo Lopez actually saw it in his windup. It was something with his release where he was getting too much torque, basically, and he was opening himself up, and he was getting cut on his fastball that he wasn't used to. So I fully expect him to improve on that, and the White Sox have been on the cutting floor recently with Rapsodo and the Edgertronic and all the other different systems that teams are using nowadays, and they've helped him refine his mechanics, and I think he's ready to break out. And a lot of the systems have him around nine strikeouts per 9 innings, and I think he could easily be 10 strikeouts per 9 this year. And I like the fact that they have an actual great catcher behind the plate in Yasmani Grandal. So just in terms of calling a game and framing, I think Cease is going to get a boost. And if he can be at a 4.0 ERA with, 10 strikeouts per 9, I'll be happy with it. And he flashed greatness last year with against the Royals where he had 11 strikeouts Cleveland, 2 walks, 11 strikeouts in 7 innings, and I think this guy he's gonna be risky at times, but I think he's got such a high ceiling that I just can't give up on him.
Yeah, exactly. Comparing him, if we look at him and Jesus, right, he's more of a guy. Sorry, 1 second. He's more of a guy that's gonna take a little bit to mature and get into it and really throw some heat and get going. It seems like he's 24 now, still obviously young. I bet he's a slower build up than a Jesus, right? But I still think he's got it. Looking at his numbers, he looks solid. He looks like a good pitcher. I'm excited to watch the White Sox going forward. I like what they have on their team and where they're going from there. Like you said, they finally have a solid catcher behind the plate there. So it'll be fun to watch going forward in real life. However, looking at Dylan Cease, like I said, he's one that's more of a slow build. It seems like more of a slow build kind of pitcher. You normally do see that with pitchers. You don't see a pitcher that comes out the gates firing right away, but you get some. I would assume. I'm not gonna say of prominence, but I would assume that a lot of pitchers are more of a slow build than a coming out the gates extremely hot right away, right?
Yeah, very few pitchers are able to come up and be dominant in terms of a Kershaw or, look how long it took for Max Scherzer to become the stud that he is. Even in Detroit, it took him a while, but the only other issue I have with Cease is the defense behind him. The infield defense is great, but he's got to lower his fly ball rate a little bit because really you only have Luis Robert in the center at this point that is going to be able to track down balls consistently, so hopefully he doesn't give up too many fly balls, but there are some risks with Cease, but at the back of my rotation, I'm willing to take it at this point.
Exactly. You have a pitching core that you can stash a couple back there and hope and see that, hey, it's a maybe even a slower than slow build. I'm not saying that Cease is that. You can stash them back there and be like, let's see what they do and give them a little more time and be a little more lenient with their progression because you've built such a strong pitching core, a strong depth pitching core in front of you. And then from there, let's go from looking. Now, those are players we talked about that are obviously young but going to produce this year. We'll talk about let's bring in some other young guys that looks like they'll produce this year, but this is, I think, for all of them, this will be their first year, correct? I guess Jesus is.
Yes.
Jesus kind of played last year, but this will be these other guys' first maybe full years, close to, right? So it's first. Right. Let's talk about, is it Joe Adell?
Yep.
Yeah, perfect. He's just skipping on the E there. Joe Adell, outfielder for the Angels, and he's 20 years old, young again, looking good, and he's playing on an Angels team. He's got Mike Trout out there. Maybe I don't know if Joe Adell. You can't really assume these guys speak English, but he's from North Carolina. He speaks English, perfect.
Yeah, he does.
You never know. So I was
there
Trout,
are a lot of Hispanics in the game now.
So you never really know. But Mike Trout out there probably be a good mentor for him, which would be fun to watch. But yeah, you can take it from here.
Joe Adell, I thought going into this season that he'd be up right away, but from what it sounds like, the Angels want to give him a little bit more seasoning. He did play essentially at 5 different levels last year between high A, double A, triple A, and then he also did play in the Arizona Fall League, which for anyone that doesn't know what that is, it's basically almost like a recreational league out in Arizona. They get a lot of these top prospects, younger guys that teams want to send them out and give them a little bit more seasoning since the minor leagues end earlier than the major leagues. So they get them out there. They get to compete against guys at their age. And he also played for Team USA. So he essentially played at 5 different levels last year. Wow. And they realized that was a lot. So he was kind of tired out by the time that September came around August and September for AAA. Arizona Fall League let him kind of recoup and get back to it. But he's dominant in the minors. He's not a guy that's going to walk a ton. But he's a great power-speed combination that I'm excited to watch, especially in the Angels outfield. And he shouldn't, you look at the outfield between Upton and Brian Goodwin in left or right. He's going to play one of those positions at some point. It just all comes down to when. And if they want to hold him until June, that's fine. But I'm really excited to see what he can do. I could see him as a 260, 270 type hitter, even with room to grow. and he's got a great power speed combination to go with that Angels team that actually improved a lot this offseason. So I can't wait till he comes up.
Yeah, no, that will be interesting to see there, especially with that, like you said, the outfield. Obviously, I can take Trout's spot. That's an obvious
No.
assumption. Obvious assumption there, right? But that's crazy to hear. I don't really know much about these guys, so it's weird for me to be interviewing you, but you're actually telling me all. I guess that's how an interview works, is that you tell me the information. Anyways, that's crazy to hear that he played in, like you said, basically 5 leagues last year, right? So we got and I'm looking at stats here. He did fine in all of them. I'm looking. Batted 300 in Double-A, kind of fell a little triple, but he's obviously coming up. He's 20 years old. Will be turning 21 here soon. Actually, no, wait. He just turned. What am I doing right now?
He'll turn 21 at the beginning of the year, basically.
Jeez.
And I mean, he struggled in AAA, but for me, he's 20 years old at the highest level before the majors. You've got a lot of 25, 26-year-old pitchers that have seen some time in the majors, so they know how to attack guys. The strikeout rate jumped a lot, and that kind of scares me, but I'm not too worried about it because he still does walk a decent amount. So I think he gets a little bit more seasoning and should be perfectly fine.
Yep, makes sense there. Going from here, we actually talked a little bit about Eloy Jimenez. Oh wait, no, that's what am I looking at? Nate Pearson here next. My brain right now is everywhere, every which way, and I have no idea why. School this week is just really mushed up my brain. But next we're going Nate Pearson here, who is what can I find? Toronto pitcher in their little system, 23 years old, and you want to go take it from there.
Yeah, I'm really excited. This will be the last prospect we talk about, though, and I really like Nate Pearson. Between him, Whitley, and Kopech, it's really tough to rank which one I would probably have as most excited or wanting to see, but Pearson has the most direct route to playing time besides Kopech. He'll be up at some point, but Pearson will make his debut. He's got a nasty fastball that pretty much he can hit triple digits just like Michael Kopech, and a lot of what it is with him is more developing the secondary stuff. He's got a good slider. His curveball is improving, and the changeup is getting there. So he's got a lot of talent. And for a Blue Jays team that really should struggle with pitching for a while, they need him to come up, and they want to get him up to where his potential could be. They don't need to rush him, especially in a tough division in the AL East. That's probably my biggest downside is having to pitch through that murderer's row of the Rays and the Red Sox and the Yankees. That's the hardest part about Nate Pearson for me at this point. But he's got a high ceiling with strikeout upside, and he's even better than Cease and Kopech, where he has the control. He's going to walk some guys, but he has the ability for a high strikeout rate. I compare him similar to Luzardo with a little bit more of a strikeout rate upside.
Okay. Nice, cool. I know this goes to show how much a professional John is. That we talk. John's got a whole list of his farm system here, and we're going to talk about 2 throughout, and I totally forgot about that. I just read down the list. Joe Adell's first. We're going to talk about Joe Adell and Michael Kopech, and I said Nate Pearson. I immediately realized what I did, but John doesn't really care. He just went right for it and knew exactly what to say. It's almost like he does this as a side gig job and writes about it constantly. I don't know. It seems like he might do a writing gig about fantasy baseball and just knows every which way about every fucking minor leaguer there is, and there's thousands of them. It's like one of those kids that, like, have you seen those? There's like people that, like, you tell them a year and they'll tell you like the Super Bowl score and who played and like who got the MVP and stuff like that.
I've never been able to do that. That always blows my mind more. At least this is more up to date and I can stay up to date with it. But the people who are able to rattle that stuff off is, especially going back to Super Bowl 4 or 5, I don't know how they do it.
Exactly. And it's not like, even if you look at like Super Bowl 4 and 5, you could be like, oh yeah, I like looked the first 10 Super Bowls just because I was interested to see where the Super Bowl started. But you're like Super Bowl 27, like who remembers Super Bowl 27?
No idea.
Right? Like no clue. I couldn't tell you half the league, and there's probably only 6 teams that played in the Super Bowl. Actually, that's a far understatement because the Super Bowl started happening way after the league was created, I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you had the centennial season, but Super Bowl like 50. What? Okay. Anyways, I I am this week in school. I'll tell you, math wasn't my strong suit. Everything. This was a bad week for school in my brain. So I'm just like, I'm ready to go to bed come Sunday and wake up refreshed and hopefully able to think things through to come the next week. But next, let's just go through. We talked about some players there, specific players, going through their strengths and what you think about going forward for them. But now let's look at the team as a whole, and first go through what. Actually, I'm gonna flip the script because let's talk about your weaknesses first. Because
all right,
you got a lot of strength, but your weaknesses are what you're average at. I'm gonna combine these together because obviously you look at your team and we see a strong team. I'd be stupid to be like, oh wow, you have so many strengths, blah blah blah. That's everyone can look at this and be like, oh shit, he's got a lot of strength. So I want to look at your what your average around at and what your weaknesses are, which you're sitting average about with saves and holds there with your relief pitching. And I would assume that's based upon that how you look at pitching in the sense that the guys are hit or miss, and especially relief pitchers, right? These guys, you can't really, and you don't seem to be the one who banks on some like immediately strong relief pitching, like you're gonna go all out for a hater type. You got Edwin Diaz on there who won the Cy Young, however, 2 years ago, right? Something like that. Or won some award 2 years ago.
I don't think he ever won this Cy Young. He was obviously he was in the conversation for it, but it's really hard for them to ever win it.
What did he win? Okay, hold on.
Probably the best.
Oh, did he win? Did he win?
Reliever.
Can you win awards per division?
No.
What did
they only do it per league?
I need to look at this. Because the other league I'm in has like if they have like a Cy Young category for some reason. It tells you if they've won it or there's a number next to his name in the Cy Young category.
Mm-hmm.
So I assumed he had won it. However, you would know, and if you're not saying he did, then he didn't.
I don't think he did.
I'm looking though. I'm looking through.
Yeah. I'll talk on that while you look.
He ranked. So he ranked 8th in the 2018 AL Cy Young.
Yeah, it's so hard for them to get it because, I mean, you figure 70 really excellent innings versus 200. I don't remember when the last time somebody got it was, but it's been a while.
I'll look it up as you talk about your relief pitching.
So the way I've always attacked relief pitching is basically, I mean, you look at my team, a lot of my guys have been either smaller time trades or pickups. Roberto Ozuna obviously was dropped by the Rockies 2 years ago. Hector Neris, which we talked about, I made a pickup of him. Mm-hmm. Lorenzen, those are my highest ranked guys. Diaz is the only one that I've acquired outside of free agency, and that was from the reduction draft that we had a couple years ago. Yeah. But for me, it's just relief pitching is so volatile that I'd rather kind of play it year by year. And if I need to go trade for a big closer, I can. But it's just so hard for me to want to invest so many assets into it that I'd rather just play the wire and have that be my most flexible spot on my team.
Yep, exactly. If we look at how our categories are laid out in the sense that the only really category that you will win or lose if your relief pitching is bad is the saves and holds, obviously. So, you can still, your team's strong enough where you can still probably win those strikeouts and those the other categories without super strong relief pitching, right? The only one they're winning is save and holds. And so your team is strong enough throughout to where you can lose. It's not even like your relief pitching is terrible anyways, but like you can lose a category and be okay with it and still be strong in every other one. So you don't need to you're not relying on one category win to put you up against, like say it's a 4th versus 5th place team where you have to rely on one strong category to kind of get you further. Your categories around are all strong. You don't need to rely on saves and holds, right? Unless the last relief pitcher to win the Cy Young was Eric Gagne in 2003.
That's right.
Which I totally forgot about him.
Yeah, and I mean, the biggest thing with me with relievers, though, too, is it's similar to they can also win you ERA and WHIP because if you get, say 3 of your relievers go 3 innings each and have all clean innings, they can really be a ratio booster there. But it's just even Aroldis Chapman, look at 2 years ago where he was kicked out of the closer's role for New York and then slotted back in later in the year. It's just so hard to have the big name guy fail for a bit, and you're just kind of sitting there on your roster of like, what do I do with him? So
and that might, and Chapman might be the biggest relief name guy up there with what he does, and for him to be kicked out, So, anyways, let's look at what you're weakest at, which is walks. Based on
walks
balls,
allowed.
Baby. Walks allowed. Yep. Talk about that. So I don't know. I look at this and I see, well, you got pitchers that play a lot. You got all your pitchers are close to 200 innings pitched almost. That's Fantrax things there, so obviously it's going to be a little exaggerated. But you got pitchers that pitch a lot. So obviously teams that are going to have pitchers that don't pitch that many innings, they got some maybe 140s later in the rotation kind of guys there. Well, obviously their balls aren't going to be as big.
God damn it. I'm
Well, anyways, you could take that and talk about that for a second. Oh my god.
So basically, for me, it's walks is a category that I'm willing to lose every week, I guess, in a sense, just for the fact that there's more strikeout upside, better whip and ERA upside at times with your higher end pitchers. And while it sucks because I do have, like 6 guys over 50 walks on the season, it's a benefit, but it hurts too. I'd rather take a few more walks and have that strikeout upside. I've never been a huge Mike Soroka, Kyle Hendricks type of fan, I guess, with the guys that they can be great, but they're not going to get you a lot of strikeout upside. I'd rather play a little bit of the risk for the upside that is strikeouts. And I mean, it's when you're allowing free passes, but when you're able to get out of it, it's always nice.
Yeah, exactly. And that brings us to the strengths of the team, which I'll tell you this right now, people listening. John wrote up his own little outline for his interview here because he obviously doesn't trust me enough to do anything. Also, he's got the layout for every team, so he just put his own shit. So what John did was he put in strength of the team. It's literally every category besides the 2 we just talked about. So that's why we flipped the script there, because John, if this was John doing himself, he'd be tooting his own horn the entire time, be like, I am so great, look at my team, I am so great. But the thing is, I sit here and I'm annoyed because I can't disagree with you. Like, you're not wrong. Like, you're just not wrong. Like, the team is strong throughout besides those 2 categories. Your team is good. Like, we obviously don't need to go into every single category unless you want to talk about some specific ones that you're extraordinary at or whatever. But the team is damn good. And so, going from there, well, what actually, I want to do is, do you want to talk about any of the specific categories at all? Or obviously you just have a good hitting team and a good pitching team where you're good pitching, you don't really care about relief, so you just pick it up every year and you still get stupid lucky anyways, and it's whatever. And
I guess I'm mostly excited to see what my OPS is at the end of the year out of all of them, just because, like we talked about, I had rookies that struggled last year, and that's the one where I kind of want to see where they're at the end of the year. That's the one that I'm mostly looking forward to.
Yeah, and that makes sense. It's like I said, it's gonna be scary once these rookies get over that learning curve and they actually start extremely lighting it up, because these guys still pretty much lit it up for as young they are last year, and to see what they actually can do as a matured major league baseball player, where they know the intricacies of the big leagues and know what to do and all that, and know how pitchers pitch, how it's different from the minors and whatnot, which they've been through 1 year already. They're going to be better their second year, probably, you'd hope. Maybe a little sophomore slump in there. Depends on how they did the first year, obviously. But then they get to a third year in the major big leagues, and you're like, I think they've, at that point, I'll tell you this, I was a terrible baseball player. I quit middle school, so I don't really know how this all works out. I'm going to assume 3 years is a good standpoint. Like, okay, I'm now at year 3 or through year 3, and now I have my feet kind of ground. I'm going to assume that's a standpoint there. But once we get there with these players, it's going to be scary to see what they can do when they've cemented themselves as major league guys. Like, truly cemented themselves and gotten used to it. Because, like you said, this year will be interesting to see from Vlad going up, because he wasn't as fantastic last year, right? But it's just going to be crazy to see down the line what happens with this team, where they go from And what they do, because I'm assuming now that, well, first off, let's go. I want to go prediction. What you want to do with the team after, if you want to go through your Pacoda win totals here. You know what these mean again? I don't necessarily. There's your war of like hitting and pitching, but you can explain it. And I'm gonna let everybody give everybody. I bet you could probably guess where he ranks with both of these. I bet you what. I'll tell you in a second what my guess is, what my conspiracy behind John figuring out these Pacoda win totals is. But I'll let him go first and talk about what his are.
So, my hitting and pitching both rank as number one, and a lot of that is obviously. I mean, Trout is predicted for an 8.5 win season, so that's a big part of why it's up there. That's his defense, his offense, everything else. But I guess it's just I have 57.6 wins above replacement for hitting, 32.6 WAR for pitching, and it's basically it takes into I can't think of the word. Takes into effect basically the defense, the offense, all parts of your game, and gives you a total of how good you are compared to the replacement player at that year. And these are just predictions, but a lot of it's just the fact that I was able to hold on to top-tier talent. Cody Bellinger, I almost dealt away, and Pete Alonso having the year he had. Obviously, he's a first baseman, so he doesn't get much of a defensive boost. But then on the pitching side, it's just the youth is there, and Pacoda tends to favor the youth that has shown at least 1 or 2 good years. So that's what I have to say about that. Pacoda it likes my team, and I'm just hoping that my team can perform up to that this year.
Here's what John did, everybody. John was like, I wonder what the Pacoda win total is for my team. And he's like, oh, wow, that's really high. Let's look at some other teams. And then he realized he was number one and was like, I'm going to make everybody say their Pacoda win total ranks. Then I get to my podcast and I get to say I'm number one in both. He can deny it all he wants. That's exactly what happened. He realized that he has the best of both. And I'm going to make everybody else say what they are. He's going to make me say I'm super low so he can come back to me and tell me he's ranked number one. I was ranked like 9th or something in one of them. I did really bad in one of them. But anyways, you're good. I don't know what to say about that. Your team's good. And like you said, it favors young people, which I didn't know. But it makes sense. If they favor young people, then you're ranked one in both. But going from there, obviously, he's probably salty too, as John needs to say, hey, I'm number one. I am ranked numero uno. Because last year, he fell to 3rd. He had a good team, strong team, out the gates, hit it running, had the best record in the league, and fell to Kevin, the Houston Astros, the real-life cheaters. He fell to them and got 3rd, which definitely does not sit well with John. And so I want to see, going next year, what do you expect?
You keep rubbing salt in the wound there, but I'll take it. It's well worth it because it was so unexpected, and honestly, anything outside of getting to the championship is going to be a letdown of a season. And obviously, anything can happen in the playoffs, just like last year. The fact that a lot of like Bellinger and Alonso went cold that week really hurt 2 of my bigger guys. So. Mm-hmm. Anything outside of making the championship is going to be a disappointing season, especially since, like we talked about, the younger players should have a better year overall, and hopefully they can bring it for the playoffs. And I also adjusted my team a little bit too, because I was only carrying, I think, 1 or 2 hitting bench players at that point. So I'm hoping that I can also overcome any injuries, since that's kind of what hurt last year, is I started having injuries in the playoffs, and I didn't have guys to replace them because none of them would go on the IL because of the fact that you had the expanded rosters for September. So hopefully I can overcome injuries, make the championship game, and prevent a 3-time champion in Keith. I do not want to see him wear the crown 3 times.
I know that'll be interesting to talk when you talk with him there about his outlook on the season. However, I'm going to say for you right now that even with Keith as a 2-time champion, Kevin right there, Jared also competes. Mm-hmm. I think for you, honestly, if you don't win the championship this year, It's another disappointing season. I don't care if you say I at least need to get to the championship. I think if you don't win the championship, it's a disappointing season, and especially if you go another year without winning it. And I know that like I like to rub salt in the wound a little bit, but looking at your team's you're on paper you're unreal. Like you have an unreal team, young team that's gonna perform. Exactly, like is just gonna perform. It's not like these guys are maybes. Oh, blah 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 blah. These guys are gonna perform. And if we go to, Key's team quickly. I'm not gonna take any of his spotlight and go through his team, but you look at his team and it just doesn't stand out the same way your team stands out. And he's sitting at 2 championships already. And so I think anything where you don't come out on top this year, at least even the next year, it's just going to be a disappointing season. I know that you're like, well, I at least want to get the championship, but I would think, and I think Chris would agree with me.
I'm sure he will.
That if you don't hit that championship and win it this year or the next, where do you go from there? And obviously it's down the line. Your team's young and you should be good, but if you keep hitting, I know you want to win a baseball championship. It's not like you're like, hey, I won hockey. Oh, I won hockey. I won a hockey championship. Whatever, John. It's a hockey championship. Obviously, in this league, that's not as touted as a NFL or. Which did you win the NFL championship this year? You did.
I won it this last year. Yeah.
Whatever.
I was glad to beat your Matt Nagy comment. That was the best part about winning. It wasn't even about being Jared. It was about beating your goddamn comment. But I gotta agree with you. It would be disappointing if I did not win the championship. But the biggest thing is just being able to take as many bites of the apple as possible. And I would love to be able to wear the crown for baseball this year, and be able to hold the crown for both of the biggest ones in our league. Since obviously basketball and hockey are not on the same tier as the other two.
Nope, and it's which is unfortunate to see. However, it is that is the case there. It's just how it happens. But yeah, if I see another Rockies logo up on that banner, I'm gonna be so pissed because I know it's not gonna be my logo up there for at least another couple seasons here. But to see another third Rockies logo up there, it's just like, man, come on, let's get someone else in here. So I know you want to take it. I know you want to say you have trouble. Not trouble, but you don't like saying, because I think you think that you're going to jinx it. Be like, oh, yeah, I'm going to make the championship. I'm going to win it, blah, blah, blah. You obviously believe in that jinx, and I do too. However, this isn't my team, so I can say it all I want. So, yeah, it's been great talking with you, doing this, going through a very talented team with a very bright future ahead of itself here, and I'm excited to see what this next season has for you.
Me too. I can't wait. I'm glad that we're only about 20 days away now as we record this, and it'll be less by the time this gets out. But we are under 3 weeks to go. March 26th is the very first day, so I cannot wait to see what happens, and I am coming for Keith's championship. I can't wait to get to his because I feel like he is going to talk a lot of shit. So I thank you for doing the interview. I'm glad you were able to do it, and this was a lot of fun, Mac. Thank you.
Hey, no problem. I had a ton of fun. This was super exciting, and I just can't wait to see what's in store for this next season. Like you said, it's so close. We have a couple more of these to do, and so we'll be looking forward to those. And I'd like to thank anyone who listened to this hour interview with John. And so, once again, thank you. Have a nice night, John. Thank you, everybody.
You too, Mac.